Hello everybody, and welcome to the Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days cutscene commentary. And since, you know, this is the 1.5 plus 2.5 HD remix collection, this is obviously the 358 over 2 days movie rather than the game itself. So this was all of the main animated cutscenes for the game, up-resed to high definition, with a few bits and pieces kind of littered in between, to tell the story of the entirety of the game, because it's definitely one of the more difficult ones to port over, because obviously it was originally on the DS, and then we did exactly the same with Recoded, and we are actually going to go and do the same with Recoded once this one's done, actually. But yes, 358 over 2 days is a very interesting game, very much so, and obviously very much in the same vein as I did with Rechain of Memories. Some cutscenes I will talk over, some I won't, particularly because this is more of a movie than the previous one. It's going to be much more complicated, I feel, but we'll see how it goes. Once again, I want the story to be here. I mean, technically I probably, well, can't anymore. I would have technically been able to have done a playthrough version of this game if I sort of wanted to, using emulators, because then I could have just, you know, inserted the HD collection cutscenes in place of the ones that are in the actual game, but that would have been a whole lot of effort, and also I'm not sure I quite would have wanted to play through the entirety of Days again. That's not to say that I don't like Days, which is a somewhat controversial statement. Like, I would say that Days is probably the Kingdom Hearts game at the bottom of pretty much everyone's list, for the main reason of repetition, because there's a lot of samey stuff that goes on. The plot, I think, just get a lot of flack from people, but personally I like it. I do just think that it suffers from repetition in terms of the plot. We spend a lot of time on top of a clock tower having talky stuff, which has its place, and it works better in the context of the actual game, but actually putting it into this format, I think, shows off more of the issues that it perhaps did have. But it's insane to think that Days is 9 years old right now. Like, my god. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, that works out quite nicely, actually. The playthrough will be going on, or it'll be going up in the sort of same month as it came out 9 years ago in Europe, because it came out October the 9th, 2009. And obviously this will be October 2018, so 9 years of Days, which is nuts! When you look back at all the stuff that's come out with Kingdom Hearts over the years, you kind of do just sit back and just go, wow, there has been a lot of games. I mean, the fact that Kingdom Hearts 3 is, I think it's technically the 12th game in the series, which, I mean, like, my god, what? But it's all good. I mean, as I've said every single time I've done a Kingdom Hearts commentary, it has a very special place in my heart, this series, the same as it does for a lot of people. And I think it's because its themes of friendship and courage and hope and good versus evil, all of that sort of stuff is very easy to kind of latch onto. You've got a whole cast of interesting characters. I mean, I would argue that 358 over 2 days probably has one of the most interesting casts in terms of plot and what they mean to things. Very confusing, but very important. But I do quite like the opening of Days. It's quite beautiful. And a nice rundown of all the members of the organisation, actually. Also, I will be calling it 358 over 2 days, because that's how I've always called it, even though I know that technically it's 358 days over 2, because I get it, but no, it's not happening. But yes, day 255, where the sun sets red.
You're early.
No, you're just late. Today makes 255.
What's that about?
It's been that many days since I first joined the organization. Man, time flies.
So, you got the number memorized, do you?
Yeah. Have to hang on to something, right? It's not like I have memories from before the organization. Don't you remember? I acted like a zombie.
Right, that first week you could barely form a sentence. But come on, you're still kind of a zombie.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, Roxas. Bet you don't know why the sun sets red. You see, light is made up of lots of colors. And out of all those colors, red is the one that travels the farthest.
Like I asked, know-it-all. Seriously, where is she? The destiny that is about to unfold actually started when we first met, on the 7th day after I came here.
So yes, this is ultimately the major gimmick of Days. You go through... It's not 358 days, but it is 358 days, as you just don't play all of the days. And thankfully we start at day 7 with number 14.
Good tidings, friends.
And the introduction of a character that a lot of people were not very happy with, but which I do actually quite like for various reasons, which I'll go into over the course of the commentary.
That a new comrade has been chosen to wear the coat. Number 14. Let us all welcome one of the Keyblades chosen.
For the 7 days since my arrival, the name Roxas and the number 13 were all I had. Who the people around me were, what they wanted, or what they were trying to do, I had no idea.
Day 8, the icing on the cake.
Teach him well, Axel.
Don't worry. I'll be sure he makes the grade. Roxas, let's go. What's wrong?
So, what this effectively does is it introduces us into the
Number 14.
main structure
Shield.
of how Days works. So you start a day, you pick a mission, and you go out and complete that mission. Sometimes you'll be by yourself, sometimes you'll partner up with other members of the organisation, which is really quite cool. The whole idea of Days, I think, was really quite awesome, because it was that whole thing of playing as part of the organisation, seeing what went on behind the scenes, because Days ultimately straddles between the end of Kingdom Hearts, the original, and all the way up to the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2. So we get a bit of Chain of Memory stuff in here as well. And we'll get through all of that. One of the things I will point out with sort of these early bits and bobs, there's those kind of text scenes which appear, and initially I thought I had to press X to get through them, but that sort of seems to automatically bring them to an end. So the first couple I might have missed out a few bits of information from those, but it doesn't really matter because there's only a few that I think that happened with, and then I finally got the gist of it. It's probably one of the issues I do have with the movie version that they put into
here you are, finally out in the field working for
the collections, just because it's not clear that it is necessarily going to skip those, because they're not hugely important, but they do deliver some context for how bits and bobs all work, and just the general gist of how the story flows and all that jazz.
I'll be receiving missions every day.
But yes,
I'm still not
Jesse McCartney is obviously back as Roxas, and he narrates pretty much the entire game. I think he does tap out after a while from the introduction. I'm trying to remember back, actually. I don't know whether he really does narrate all that much more than sort of the opening few sections, but still he is he's as good as ever, really. There is one line read in the game which a lot of people take the mickey out of. Potentially rightfully so, but it is a line that, in the context of the game and the characters, does have a lot of poignancy and meaning. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but that's for right at the end of the game.
I don't even know what a heart is.
But yes, as we continue, the game does sort of start off relatively quickly, actually. You do get a lot of gameplay, so I might as well, go into some of the key bits and bobs. So, the game was developed by Hand, or H-A-N-D, as it's kind of done out, and basically, I think they have done a lot of work with Square Enix and Namco Bandai. So they've done, like, Tamagotchi games, they did
if we don't have hearts,
the Final Fantasy Fables games. They went on to help make Kingdom Hearts Recoded. They've worked with Level 5 on Fantasy Life. And yeah, so they've not necessarily really made any brand new games that people would go, yes, desperately want to get in on that. But they're doing pretty well for themselves. I think this year they either have or are going to release a game called The Snack World Trader's Gold with Level 5.
Why am I the only one who can wield such
although
I'm learning all
yeah,
these
or something to do with
There's
that.
So much more that I don't get.
Or that might be the Switch port of it, but it's good that they're getting work. And I think, considering what they managed to achieve with Days and Recoded, it's quite impressive, really. They managed to effectively fit the PS2 games sort of onto a DS. Obviously, the quality of the visuals were not necessarily great in the in-game gameplay and cutscenes. It was very pixelated, and the gameplay itself was very much a watered-down version of the command deck of Birth by Sleep. But it worked. it was relatively fun. I think sort of the biggest issue that I remember having is that the way that you leveled up was it was all to do with like little slots in a grid. And so to level up, you had to apply kind of level up slots, like chips or whatever. And so you could only ever take in a limited number of things at once, depending on what kind of grids you had available. And it was an interesting idea, because it also decided sort of what moves you took in, but it did end up being slightly frustrating. Because sometimes you didn't always know what you were going in to do in terms of your missions, and you sort of, and also the biggest issue that people had, and still have with the game really, is that it was billed as being the story of the organisation, the story of Roxas, and when he was part of the organisation, which it is, but I think a lot of people expected more of the other members of the organisation.
What do you mean?
And while we do get a lot of Roxas and Axel time, it's great. It's a really compelling kind of friendship and narrative between both of them. But obviously they introduced a new character, Shion, who does end up taking up quite a lot of the story, and I know that people did not feel really very happy about that at all. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not really one to judge people for not liking that, and I totally understand why they had issue with Shion being introduced as a character and taking away from the other members of the organisation who we'd already been quite interested in. But sort of one of the key differences was that you were able to play multiplayer for missions, so your friends could play as other members of the organisation, which was really quite cool. There were other characters that you could play as. I think you could play as Mickey, Sora, Riku, maybe someone else, I don't really know. But it was really a quite fun idea, although obviously it was purely local multiplayer from what I remember. And I don't think it was great, but the issue that followed on from that is that some of the actual missions in the solo campaign did end up overstaying their welcome, so to speak. Particularly the bosses. I know that the bosses were a big issue for a lot of people, and it was because in terms of the amount of health they had, it was more than you would probably expect for the type of game that it was, and it's because they sort of were made more for the multiplayer aspect and weren't necessarily rebalanced to take into account a single player. Certainly not impossible to do, but there were certainly a couple that were very, very, very infuriating.
Nothing but fun.
I mean, I believe it was Leechgrave, and then oh god, I'm just going to make sure having a tapper. What the monster was called.
Axel, I have a message from Lord Zemnis. Among the members assigned to Castle Oblivion, there are traitors. Find them.
Yeah, no, none of this is particularly helping me in my my googling. You would have thought that it perhaps would.
Hey, Axel?
Yeah, we're just gonna have to go into the Heartless and hope that the list does me good.
What do I do with this?
Obviously, I've played through a lot of Kingdom Hearts at this point, so not all of the enemies are completely ingrained in my head. I mean, some of them like Invisible, Dark Side, Shadows, Neo Shadows, soldiers, and so on and so forth. Large bodies, the Nocturne, Rhapsodies, Operas, Requiems. Those ones I remember.
Without the loudmouths.
And obviously I am very aware of what our delightful friend was called, but I think because it's been such a long time since I actually played Days, it didn't quite manage to fully stick in my head.
Roxas, get to work.
Which is a bit sucky, but you take what you can get, really.
I've got someplace to be again today, so go on ahead without me.
Roxas.
Huh? Shion?
And oh look, Shion's finally talking. It's delightful. And here she is voiced by Alison Stoner, who I think does do a very good job, and they've made use of her throughout the franchise since this point. Although her and Hayden Panettiere have kind of sort of doubled up a little bit, in that sometimes Hayden's done Shion, sometimes Alison has done Kairi. And at the present moment in time when I am recording this commentary, which is kind of end of September, start of October 2018, it appears as though Alison Stoner is going to be the one voicing Kairi in Kingdom Hearts 3, which leaves me feeling a little bit uncomfortable because I feel like it really should be Hayden, because that is the voice of Kairi that we're all much more used to. But hey, we'll take what you can get. And finally I have got to that hideous boss. So yeah, it was Leechgrave and Ruler of the Sky.
I didn't know you could use the Keyblade.
They were particularly awful fights, boss fights. You also did have Antlion and Infernal Engine, but I do recall them only being frustrating because they had a lot of health, not because of having a lot of health and being irritating boss fights at the same time. Leechgrave and Rule of the Sky were, they were truly awful.
Here you go.
But, oh, look at the sea salt ice cream.
Sea salt ice cream.
It's delightful. I did actually try to make sea salt ice cream once.
Salty.
It's good,
Wasn't
right?
the biggest success in the world, if only
Excellent.
because
We meet here
I
for
think
ice cream
that
after
I
work.
didn't put enough sea salt in it. So it did
This
end up
flavor
just
is
tasting
Axel's favorite.
very,
like it's yours, too.
very
Yeah.
vanilla-y.
Axel
That was
brought
all I
me
could
here to eat
taste
ice
was
cream on
vanilla,
my first day with the
with maybe a
organization.
tiny hint of salt.
And then, after my first mission, he got me ice cream again. Said it was ice.
It was nice. It was just
Like
also
you just did for me.
probably because of,
You
I think
guys
because of the
must be
temperature of the
really
freezer,
close.
it solidified
Axel and I
a
are
lot more. So
friends.
rather than being that
Friends.
like really
You think
nice,
that I could be a friend?
soft, creamy type of
When
ice cream,
Axel gets
it
back,
was a lot
We'll all
more
have ice cream together.
just kind of
Okay.
frozen. Which is fine, but at some point I would like to try and, have actual sea salt ice cream again. But it's not a thing that, they sell, apart from in certain Disneylands. Primarily, I think Disneyland, like Tokyo and
Is it
stuff,
true, then,
but there we go.
about Castle Oblivion?
That's none of your concern.
And Axel?
And yes, this is the point where
Disappeared for good.
Castle Oblivion has happened, and everyone is dead. Mwahahaha! That's what they all deserved, to be fair.
Hey, what happens when Heartless are destroyed?
The hearts remain. And then, those hearts gather together to form the great Kingdom Hearts.
I
Then
don't think
can you
I've
tell
ever
me
heard
what remains if an
anybody in the
opening is
series,
destroyed?
apart from probably
What's there to leave
say it
behind?
as Kingdom
Not even
Hearts,
supposed to be in the
rather
first
than
place.
Kingdom Hearts.
And the members at
Like,
Castle Oblivion, where'd they go?
putting the emphasis on both
Nothing's
of the
left of
words.
them.
Is that whole difference between how Americans go like
I'll never
Robin
see them
Hood,
again?
and it's just like, no,
That's
it's
right.
Robin Hood. Like, two separate words. They don't align
Coming?
together.
Oh,
But yeah, it's an odd one.
What's happening?
Yeah, you're kind of getting a little bit screwed over there, Roxas. Officially, what's happened there is that was the moment where Sora went to sleep, and
I've been to see him.
Namine began to
He looks a
start
lot like you.
taking his memories apart and trying to put them back together.
I'm what's left. Or maybe I'm all there ever was.
Oh, Xemnas, you weirdo.
My name is of no importance. What about you? Do you remember your true name?
my true name is...
You have been with us for 6 days now. The time has come. Will he wake from this?
I am told Roxas will return, provided the hero is stripped of all his memories.
Then I suppose much hinges on Castle Oblivion.
Shion has gained power over the Keyblade, just as we intended. She can fill Roxas's shoes for the time being.
So yes, one of the things that is slightly good in Days is that you do skip a large number of days in terms of the gameplay, which is sort of one of those moments where you go, oh, thank God for that.
Beautiful it was.
But then I know that some people then had problems with that because it was just like, well, don't tell me 358 days and don't allow me to play 358 days. But there we go, and oh, Shion's theme is just beautiful.
I'll see you
It's
tomorrow.
musique pour la tristesse de Shion, or music for the sadness of Shion, and it's just so beautiful. It's easily one of my favourite songs in the entirety of Days, really. It's great. I really, really do love it.
I knew that I'd find you snoozing down here.
Oh, finally, Roxas, you're awake. I thought it would be, stuck playing as Shion or something, like set all the people pissed off.
Roxas?
Shion. What happened to me?
You were sleeping for a long time. Sayek said there was no telling when you might wake up. But I'm glad you did.
I kind of feel like a zombie, though.
I brought you this.
Huh?
It's a seashell. I've been picking one up on every mission. Hold it up to your ear.
Now, in terms of the missions that you end up doing throughout Days, there's a few that are good, which are sort of your standard kill X number of Heartless. They're always pretty okay. There's a couple which are stealth based. There's one in Agrabah which is particularly irritating. You also have, like, find the medals. That tends to be one. Sometimes it's kill the big Heartless. It varies. Some are definitely better than others. I'd say the stealth ones are probably among the worst. But in general, the gameplay of Days was not bad. Like, obviously it wasn't perfect, because, like, obviously while they attempted to put the original PS2 style of gameplay onto the DS, didn't prove to be quite that easy, because there's not enough buttons. And hey, there's only so much you can do with that. But I think, that said, they did a pretty decent job of approximating the whole thing onto the DS. It's definitely better than obviously what they ended up doing with Chain of Memories, which just completely changing it all. And then they did go on to refine it for Recoded, which ultimately does mean that Recoded is the better game to play. But I would say that Days is the story that has more of an emotional impact, and arguably, even though it doesn't necessarily have the hugest impact on the story, it does have more impact than Recoded does, bar 2 key points which appear right at the end of the game. Days is just, I feel, very much a character piece. In sort of the same way as Birth by Sleep was, in a way, but that was more of a plot piece than this one. This is effectively Roxas's tragedy, and for that purpose, it's really, I think it's really relatively well done. I like it, for definite. Obviously there is a lot of cutscene, and we are going to be here for a while doing stuff. Obviously, like Chain of Memories, I have split it up because I'm not completely insane.
Did you search every room?
Like, I can get myself talking for about maybe an hour and a half. The second you start to go over that, when it's just me, I just start to go, oh, no, brain not functioning, so to do the full 3 hours in one fell swoop, I think might do me in. So, just, you know, pacing myself, because while I do like Days, we do spend a lot of time on that clock tower. And I would end up losing my mind. So, yes, and plots ahoy!
I moved things along just the way you wanted. At least for now.
I suppose this is one of the things that Days introduces, is that there sort of is a pseudo plot going on between Sayax and Axel. But from what I recall, it never really properly went anywhere. I'm wondering whether it's something that will come up in Kingdom Hearts 3 at all. But
it's thanks to you that we get to
we shall see.
Having ice cream.
I wonder if Shion's gonna show today.
So these particular scenes, just the text ones, they're not great. I totally understand why they're here, because it'd be very difficult to, you know, tell the story elsewise, because you would miss out on all that important contexty stuff. But what you do end up just getting is just sort of it really slows down the plot. It's something that when they went to do the Recoded movie, they definitely improved upon, because from what I recall there were far less of them, and they did create some brand new scenes in order to
Are you okay?
kind of bulk out the plot somewhat, and sort of fill in those gaps, make the bits where there are fights, like there are actual fights. They did do one of that for 3 for over 2 days, but that was only, I think, on the PS... I want to say the PS4 version of the collection.
Why don't we head back?
And that was...
There you go.
I think because it made sense to bulk out. It's basically the final fight of the game, the big final boss, because it's a very important moment, and the way that it had been in the initial release. Well, I mean, obviously in the original game you had the fight, so it worked. But when you immediately take out those fights, they end up losing some of tension. So introducing a fight cutscene into there, it worked out.
I can't use the Keyblade anymore.
And oh great, Shion! Lovely. Nice how this turns up so early on.
I don't know. But if I don't defeat Heartless with the Keyblade, the hearts they release will just find their way into other Heartless instead. I swat them in one place, and they just pop up in another. My mission is to go out and collect hearts. If I'm unable to use the Keyblade, I'll be useless.
Is there anything you can do, Axel?
I wish there was, but it's just like she said. Without the Keyblade, she can't collect hearts.
And once they find out, they're gonna turn me into a Dusk.
We can't do anything?
I already told you there's nothing we can... Hold on.
Did you think of something?
Roxas, you can work double duty.
Huh?
What do you mean?
Shion, make sure your missions are with Roxas until you can use the Keyblade again. That way, he can collect the hearts and no one will know that you can't use the Keyblade.
That's it.
But that means you have to collect twice as many hearts.
Yeah, I can do it.
Would you?
Of course I would.
But...
Friends need to lean on each other every now and then. Ain't that right, Roxas?
we're friends. Axel, does that mean you and I are friends, too?
Well, if you're friends with Roxas, then yeah, of course you're my friend.
He says as he looks away.
Thank you.
Complications
Roxas,
there, but
Axel?
hey.
Just eat your ice cream.
Now, throughout that cutscene, you may have noticed something particularly odd about Shion, in that sort of whenever certain characters would speak, well, whenever Roxas was speaking to her, we saw her face and her hair, but whenever Axel was speaking to her, we just saw the hood and sort of shielded face. It's something that occurs quite frequently throughout the game, and it is obviously a whole big thing, but that is something that will be revealed later. It's sort of the big plot twist to do with Shion and who Shion is. Which I know did annoy some people, but considering, you know, everything that we went through in Chain of Memories, it makes complete sense, and I'm fine with it.
So best friends are different from plain friends, right?
They're about the same.
Best friends, huh?
But I'd say, best friends are a notch above just plain friends.
So how are they different?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I don't have any best friends.
I see.
Slightly brutal, but, hey, these things happen. But yeah, this is one of the other things that I do find quite fascinating with Days, is that there's a lot of philosophy going on about friends and emotions and all of that, because obviously it's characters who are meant to be without hearts, sort of analysing what it is to be friends and how that works with who they are, and it's fascinating.
Rage, hate,
And
sadness,
oh lucky, it's Kingdom Hearts, but we don't know whether it's actual Kingdom Hearts or whether it's just a version of Kingdom Hearts. Honestly, on respect of what the hell Kingdom Hearts is, I'm a little bit lost still at this point. But really, I don't care. It's either a pretty moon or a door. I'll live with whatever I get.
hangs the promise of a new world. My friends, let us gain further power to conquer the human heart and claim it as our own. Let us remember why we are here and what we hope to achieve. Hearts shall be gathered and be made our own. Hearts shall never again have power over us.
All this fighting. I wonder what it's for.
Come on, you know what it's for. We have to complete the Great Kingdom Hearts. You saw it too, didn't you?
But what is Kingdom Hearts?
It's the gathering place of hearts, isn't it?
It's where all the hearts wind up after they're released by you. When we gather enough, we might finally get hearts of our own.
Hearts shall be made our own.
Is Kingdom Hearts really that important?
Are you crazy?
I just don't see why having a heart is that important, you know?
Come on. You're wondering about that now?
Well, I don't understand since I don't have a heart.
Roxas,
We'll understand once we have our own hearts. That's why we fight, to find out what it's about.
Okay. I guess you're right.